Do you love breakdowns? Do you need stats? Do you crave insight? Download the AllStar app. UFC, Bellator, PFL 1 Championship, and more. Ad-free, fully customizable. Download the best app in the business. Link in descriptions. UFC 281, Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira. Are you a fan of straight kickboxing? Do you follow kickboxing?
Not really. No.
Me
I mean,
either.
obviously, I know who Pereira is, and I know obviously the history behind it, but I really don't follow or watch kickboxing much.
Mhm.
Um, it's really interesting. Everyone wants to go with Pereira, of course, right? Because he's knocked out Izzy in kickboxing, but kickboxing is not MMA, right? There's so many other variables that come into play, and I do think Izzy's more involved in MMA, of course, and he's more experienced. Does that mean I think he's going to win? Not necessarily. Here's my take. I think Izzy's better, and I think he's probably better everywhere. But I think maybe I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say Prey's going to win. And I think the reason why he's going to win is because I think that Izzy's going to be overconfident. I think he's going to allow his ego to allow him to get caught, and I think he does because I think he's mad, right? And I think that could play in a role. Not that because Izzy's not a mentally weak person, but I think his ego is going to lead him into shit that he normally wouldn't do. So because of that, I'm going to go with Pereira, with a TKO. I think it'll go a little longer though. I think it might be in, like the third or fourth, but I'm going to call it. I'm going to say Pereira wins, and it's solely based off not skill per se. I mean, granted, their skill is fantastic, but I think Izzy's I think his ego might get him this fight.
So the psychological edge, it doesn't really go into one person's favor. It might be a reverse factor on that one. Like you have a too much of a psychological edge in your mind that could play
I
play against him.
I think it can because I think Izzy might get caught up in the fact that he's gotten knocked out, right, by the
Mm.
guy. And I think maybe his ego is going to lead him into positions that he normally wouldn't do. Maybe it's more of a firefight and he does it just because he wants to prove a point. And I think though that mentality going in could be a deciding factor. And I think it could get him caught instead of just staying who Izzy is. Um, I don't know. I just had that weird gut feeling like he's gonna come in mad, which usually doesn't necessarily bode well for a lot of people. Now being um, aggressive and all that stuff, it's fine. But I think if he stays who Izzy is and doesn't get caught up in the whole stuff, because it's different than other fights, right? He's been knocked out by this guy,
Mhm.
right? The worst possible thing ever, right? So and now everyone thinks he's gonna get knocked out. So even though mentally he's a very strong and very grounded person, I just for some reason I think that it might get to him, right? And he will get caught in that in an exchange because he's going to be willing to do it because he wants to prove a point, and I think him trying to prove that point is going to get him caught.
As a coach, how do you get your fighter to sway away from that? You know what I mean? Not to get caught up in the hype because you are the better MMA fighter.
100% he is. I think it's reminding him of the moment, right?
Mhm.
Not the past, not the future, the moment, right? What he's doing right now and keeping him in that moment every round, every second, every minute of every round during that fight. And I think Eugene will, right? Like he always does. But um, whether Izzy adheres to it, I don't know because I think he wants to knock out Pereira so bad that it might actually not play out well for him.
Mm.
But if I'm Eugene, I would be trying to keep Israel in the moment. Remember who he is. Remember he has the experience advantage. Remember that he, in my opinion, has more MMA attributes that can win. Um, and just constantly reminding them of that. I don't know what their game plan is, of course, but I think that part will play a big role. Just keeping him calm and remembering, forgetting about the fact that, all those things may have happened in the past and staying in the moment.
People forget how important corner work is, especially at the highest level in the biggest fights.